Hi guys, this is Michelle picking up from where we left off with the Q posts. We have 3 posts here to go over from February 24th, which was yesterday. Today is February 25th and it is 7:28 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As of today, Q has not posted yet, but that does not mean that he won't. And I do want us to be caught up for when he does. So we'll be fresh and clean for the next drop. So let me start here. There's just 3 little posts, but there's a lot in the last one. So the first one, of course, Q is just doing a security test, and he says security test, Q. That's nothing unusual. He often throws his hat in the ring just to see if things are secure on the 8chan forum, and that's what he was doing there. Then the very next post, he says communication's good. Nice try. Period. Q. So I don't know what's going on here. Perhaps there was somebody trying to interfere with the communications and he says nice try. I don't know, but obviously everything was okay because he goes ahead and he makes his drop, but he only drops 1 post. So this post says Stanislav Lunev. Now that's a Russian name, and I'm not sure why, but I love Russian names. I don't know why I said that. That doesn't have anything to do with anything, but let me go out here, and I had never heard of him. Maybe you have, but he was a Russian spy, a defector actually. And let's go out here on the internet and see who he was. I found this on Liberty Vibe. And it says, several years ago, I heard an interview by a gentleman who had defected from communist Russia. His name was Stanislav Lunev. He told a fascinating story about what it was like growing up under communism and the stories the Russian children were told about America. From the cradle, they were taught to hate us. He also tells of how he defected and why. But what I found interesting were his impressions of America and how the lies he was told as a child were nothing like what he found to be true. He also tells a very interesting tale of how Soviet Russia was working very hard for decades to bring down this country. This book contains many details that will shock you, details that still matter today. Why do they matter? Russia is no longer under communism. They matter because Russia, just like America, still has a deep state that is very loyal to communism. Elements from this network are still operating around the globe to bring their utopian dream to fruition. Make no mistake, Lunev speaks of traps that were laid years ago, suitcase nukes, that if activated by rogue elements, could still bring America to her knees. Perhaps that is why QAnon thought it best to bring him up. You can read the book here, and this is the book that they are discussing, and this picture is very blurry. It's called Through the Eyes of the Enemy. Suitcase nuclear bombs on U.S. soil, assassination squads targeting American leaders, high-tech drug running, a mafia-controlled government and military. Russia's highest-ranking military defector reveals why Russia is more dangerous than ever. Now, we're going to be looking at a few things, and I'm going to try to tie some things together. I'm not sure that I've got a whole handle on what Q is saying here, and I'm not sure that anybody does, to tell you the truth. But I would welcome your comments and suggestions, because I'm going to go over some things that seem obvious to me, but there may be things that are obvious to you, and because we have different frames of reference and so forth, you may see things very, very differently than I do. So I'm going to go over here on Twitter, and I found this person. I don't even think I'm following them, but it's Angel of War. I think I may follow them. And they said, new QAnon decode, Great Awakening, Stanislav Lunev, The Bridge, payback for today, Q. And they said Lunev himself had several American journalists working on Russia's behalf, and based on his experience, the number of American journalists spying for Russia is, quote, very big. Is this Lunev? And I believe it is. From what I've seen, that is Lunev right there. Now, here's something else, and I want to make this Hopefully I can make this bigger, but maybe I can't. Oh, darn. Let's see if I can get this bigger for you guys. Okay. Now, you may have seen this meme, but CIA distorting reality worldwide, consume, sensationalism, scandal, and, Lunev was very familiar with Mockingbird. So, and he said American journalists have access to a wide array of contacts, politicians, military intelligence, it's top of the line access, on-time intelligence that foreign journalists would not have readily available, Lunev said. Now that's interesting. Now, we probably know that already, but it's interesting to hear that from a foreigner who's no longer a foreigner. But now, that's my cat sneezing. So, Secretary of State Madeleine Albright seemed baffled by the allegations and demanded, if you are spies, then identify yourself. Apparently, no one so far has responded to her order. Yeah, that would work, wouldn't it? There's other stuff here, though, that I wanted to show you. Stanislav Lunev and Watch the Water. Remember when Q said watch the water? Well, interesting, because one of the things that Lunev, when he defected, warned us about is the water supply and how easily it would be to poison the water supply in America. And well, indeed, it's already been being poisoned by from the inside with all the drugs and everything else that's in the water and fluoride. But I think he's talking something totally different. So the American Legion Bridge, Cabin John Bridge, hidden inside Cabin John Bridge in suburban Maryland, is a conduit 9 feet in diameter that carries millions of gallons of water from the Great Falls into D.C. Now, according to Lunev, a probable scenario in the event of war would have been poisoning the Potomac River with chemical or biological weapons, targeting the residents of Washington, D.C. He also considered it likely that GRU operatives placed poison supplies near the tributaries to major U.S. reservoirs. These allegations have been confirmed by former SVR officer Kuzmanov, who was responsible for transporting pathogens from around the world for Russian program of biological weapons in the 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s. He described a variety of biological warfare acts that would be carried out on the order of the Russian president in the event of hostilities, including poisoning public drinking water supplies and food processing plants. So, is this why Q is telling us to watch the water? I don't know. Now, I wanted to make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay, what's this? Because I think this is pronounced Kliniki Bridge was a restricted border crossing between Eastern Bloc, namely Potsdam and East Germany, and territory affiliated with the Western powers, namely the American sector of West Berlin. The Americans and Soviets used it for the exchange of captured spies during the Cold War. Reporters began calling it the Bridge of Spies. When this name was later used as the title for various works, it was often taken to be a pun on Bridge of Sighs, a name applied first to the bridge in Venice and then to others. The first prisoner exchange took place on February 10th, 1962. The Americans released Rudolf Abel, convicted for spying for the Soviet Union in 1957 in exchange for Gary Powers, the pilot of a U-2 spy plane shot down in 1960. On 12th June 1985, there was a swap of 23 American agents held in Eastern Europe for Polish agent Marian Zakarski and another 3 Soviet agents arrested in the West. The exchange was the result of 3 years of negotiation. The final exchange was also the most public. On the 11th of February 1986, the human rights campaigner Refusnik and political prisoner Anatoly I can't pronounce it. And 3 Western agents were exchanged for Karl Kocher, and 4 other Eastern agents. So, they're obviously wondering if the bridge might have something to do with this Bridge of Spies, or Bridge of Sighs, as it was nicknamed. So, and we're going to look at something else too. This is interesting. It's an interesting quote by Stanislav Lunev. The best spy will be everybody's best friend, not a shadowy figure in the corner. Now, notice the picture on this meme here, and we're going to see why in a minute. And I'll tell you one thing, I didn't see this coming. I didn't. I would not have, I don't know, I just would not have gone there. But we're about to go there. So, is Obama a Manchurian candidate? And was he working for Russia? Well, like I said, I wouldn't have gone there personally, but let's take a look. Now that I'm looking, there's a good possibility. Okay. Now, this is entitled, and this article is available on a lot of news sites. It's not just this one, but I'm picking this up from the AmericanFreePress.net. And it's bought by Tom Fife. During the period of roughly February 1992 to mid-1994, I was making frequent trips to Moscow in the process of starting a software development joint venture company with some people from the Russian scientific community. One of the men in charge of the Russian side was named VM. He had a wife named TMV. TMV was a level-headed scientist, while his wife was rather deeply committed to the losing communist cause. Early in 1992, the American half of our venture was invited to V&T's Moscow flat, as we were about to return to the States. As the evening wore on, T developed a decidedly rough anti-American edge, one her husband tried to quietly rein in. The bottom line of this tirade she started against the United States went something like this. You Americans like to think that you have the perfect government and that your people are always so perfect. Well, then why haven't you had a woman president by now? You had a chance to vote for a woman vice president and you didn't do it. The general response went along the lines that you don't vote for someone just because of their sex. Besides, you don't vote for vice president, but the president and vice president as a ticket. Well, I think you're going to be surprised when you get a black president very soon, she said. The consensus we expressed was that we didn't think there was anything innately barring that, the right person at the right time, and sure, America would try to vote for the right person, be he or she black or not. What if I told you that you will have a black president very soon and he will be a communist, she said. Well, you will, and he will be a communist. One of us asked, it sounds like you know something we don't know. Yes, it is true, she replied. This is not some idle talk. He is already born and he is educated and being groomed to be president right now. You will be impressed to know that he has gone to the best schools of presidents. He is what you call Ivy League. You don't believe me, but he is real, and I even know his name. His name is Barack. His mother is white, an American, and his father is black from Africa. That's right, a chocolate baby, and he's going to be president. She became more and more smug as she presented her stream of detailed knowledge and predictions so matter-of-factly as though all were a foregone conclusion. It's all been thought out. His father is not an American black, so he won't have that social slave stigma. He is intelligent and he is half white and has been raised from the cradle to be an atheist and a communist. He's gone to the finest schools. He is being guided every step of the way, and he will be irresistible to America. She was obviously happy that the communists were doing this and that it would somehow be a thumbing of their collective noses at America. They would give us back they would give us a black president and he'd be a communist to boot. She made it obvious that she thought this was going to breathe new life into world communism. She always asserted that communism was far from dead. She was full of details about him that she was eager to relate. She rattled off a complete litany. He was from Hawaii. He went to school in California. He lived in Chicago. He was soon to be elected to the legislature. Have no doubt he is one of us, a Soviet. Since I had dabbled in languages, I knew a smattering of Arabic. I commented, if I remember correctly, Barak comes from the Arab word for blessing. That seems to be an odd name for an American. She replied quickly, yes, it is African, she insisted, and he will be a blessing for world communism. We will regain our strength and become the number one power in the world. She said something to the effect that America was at the same time the great hope and the great obstacle for communism. America would have to be converted to communism, and Barak was going to pave the way. So what does this conversation from 1992 prove? Well, it's definitely anecdotal. It doesn't prove that Obama has had communist training, nor that he was groomed to be the first black American president, but it does show one thing that I think is important. It shows that Soviet Russia communists knew of Barak from a very early date. It also shows that they truly believed among themselves that he was a raised and groomed communist to pave the way for their future. This report on Barak came personally to me from one of them long before America knew he existed. Although I had never before heard of him at the time of this conversation, Obama was 30 plus years old and was obviously tested enough that he was their anticipated rising star. Who is Tom Fife? Tom Fife was a government contractor with an active security clearance who took notes on his trips for Defense Intelligence Agency debriefings within the Department of Defense. In 1992, following an astounding conversation at a dinner party in Moscow, he took down notes for future reference. It was long before the world ever heard the name Barack Obama. Students of revisionist history will remember that Bill Clinton disappeared from Oxford University in England for a while in 1970 and surfaced in Moscow, courtesy of the CIA, purportedly to be trained in communism. When the accompanying story first appeared, we could not locate its source for confirmation and cast it off as a probable internet fairy tale. But we have since interviewed Tom Fife, blending the information with the many accusations of high-profile politicos such as former UN Ambassador Alan Keyes, and witnessed the communistic behavior of the White House occupant, and we have no doubt the authenticity of this amazing piece. Wow. That's quite something, isn't it? Yeah. I'm not sure what to think about it. But let's see something else. Now, this is talking about a mailman, okay? And this mailman used to deliver the mail to Bill Ayers and his wife. So that's what this is talking about, and I may not play all of it, but I do want to play some of it.
And when were you born? I was born February 17th, 1943. I'm 69. I was a letter carrier with the Glen Ellyn Postal Service. Carried mail from 1962 to 2001. Were you in Glen Ellyn, Illinois, which I believe is 60137, is that correct? That's right. It was a very beautiful neighborhood, and it was one of the nicer routes that any of the letter carriers would have liked to have had. Was there any one address in particular that we're going to talk about that you delivered mail to, and who resided there? That was Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Ayers. And who are they? Thomas Ayers was formerly president of Commonwealth Edison. He has a son that's been in the news whose name is Bill Ayers. Now, did you ever know Tom Ayers, the husband of Mary Ayers? I had a conversation with him not too long after they first moved in to their home. And basically it opened up, he asked me about my job and how I liked my job and things particular about my employment situation. And then he started in on what I refer to as a Marxist type of viewpoint. Essentially, it had to do with the plight of the working man, maybe being taken advantage of by corporations or the people that employ them. And I just had this uncomfortable feeling that he thought he knew about my situation as a working person better than I did, and that he knew what was best for me.
Can you recall the conversation in the early 1990s with Mary?
Yeah, one day she came to the door when I came up to the house with the mail, and after a greeting, she started enthusiastically talking to me about this young black student that they were helping out, and she referred to him as a foreign student, and he had a strange name. She mentioned it. I didn't remember it at the time, and I was just kind of taken aback by how enthusiastic she was about him.
Did you ever meet this young student?
Well, I don't know if it's some months or even a year later, there was a young man, a black man, walking down the street just after I had delivered the mail to the heir's home, and he greeted me, and he was very polite. He was nicely dressed and formally dressed, and immediately he entered into conversation with me and told me that he had taken the train out from Chicago, and he had come to thank the heir's family personally for helping him with his education. I asked him, I said, well, now that you're out of school, what are your plans? What are you going to do? And he said, and he looked right at me, he says, I'm going to be president of the United States. And there was kind of a little bit of a grin in his face when he said it. And I know how people will say things because they have an ambition or something, but it did not come across that way. It came across like this was something that's already been determined. And I have to tell you that it struck me in such a way I was speechless from it.
How close were you to the heir's home when the conversation started?
We were on the public walk right in front of their home.
You associated this young man you met in front of the house with the same young man that Mary had told you about.
Absolutely.
What made you think it was the same person?
Because he had come to thank them for helping with his education, and that was the topic of the conversation that I had with Mary.
Barack Obama running for office. Are you certain that this was the young black male you saw in front of the heir's home?
I am absolutely positive that it was Barack Obama.
I mean, you certainly must realize that saying a foreign student is very detrimental, very dangerous information, because that...
Yes.
Yeah, so
I'm only telling you what I distinctly remember her saying in her description of him. That was in the sentence, that he was a foreign student.
So, and I'm sure you recognized Dr. Corsi there, the one interviewing him. And he seems very credible. He delivered mail for years and years and years there to that neighborhood. So that's interesting. So that not only corroborates that he was a foreign student, but that he was getting help from a known communist for his education. So that's interesting, to say the very, very, very least. Now, we're going to take a look at this as well because poor Maxine exposed Obama.
Former President presidents usually avoid politics in the early days of their successor's administration.
Let me try to get
but
to
Mr.
the
Obama
right.
has chosen not to be silent.
There we
For
go.
example, he praised opponents of Mr. Trump's travel ban.
Former President Barack Obama said,
16, that's it.
Well, I don't know, and I think some people are missing something here. The president has put in place an organization that contains a kind of database that no one has ever seen before in life. That's going to be very, very powerful, and whoever...
In terms of the Organizing for America that he's now shifting to become a 501c4.
Yeah, that's right. And that database will have information about everything on every individual in ways that it's never been done before. They're going to have to go down with that database and the concerns of those people because they can't get around it. And he's been very smart. I mean, it's very powerful what he's leaving in place.
He's quietly building this shadow opposition government to sabotage Trump, and they've got an army of agitators. We're talking about, as you suggest in the column, something north of 30,000 people in OFA. These are professionally trained agitators. They're schooled in Alinsky's Rules for Radicals tactics. They've got another 25,000 who are under training now, and they've got another big training summit coming up in March. And we haven't seen the worst of these protests. These are really going to hit hard, but Obama's the guy who's behind all this. He's the mastermind.
Loretta Lynch now calling for blood, encouraging protesters to help get the president out of the White House, even if it costs them their lives.
I know that this is a time of great fear and uncertainty for so many people. I know it's a time of concern for people who see our rights being assailed, being trampled on, and even being rolled back. I know that this is difficult, but I remind you that this has never been easy. We have always had to work to move this country forward to achieve the great ideals of our founding fathers. And it has been people, individuals who have banded together, ordinary people who simply saw what needed to be done and came together and supported those ideals who have made the difference. They've marched, they've bled. Yes, some of them have died. This is hard. Every good thing is.
If we don't fight, who's going to fight for us? People had to die for freedom where we're at today. We can't just do rallies. We have to fight back. There will be casualties on both sides. There will be, because people have to die to make a change in this world. But Trump, enough with your racism.
We have done this before. We can do this again.
You saw what happened after November 8th. First it was the riots that...
So it almost leaves me speechless. But you can see that everything that Q has been saying, I mean, from the very first, I remember Q saying that there was all this infrastructure that had been put in place that would ensure Obama that the Democrats would stay in power, really, even though Trump was there, that all that infrastructure was there to ensure that they would continue in power. And now, poor Maxine there just kind of spills it all out and says it. Just says it like it is. And, all these agitators and things, these are all part of it. Loretta Lynch calling for blood in the streets. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But that's where we are. That's exactly where we are. Now I have one more link, and I think too, when he's talking about Stanislav Lunev, Russian defector, and I really do think that this is pointing at Barack Obama, and the bridge, watch the water, that could be connected. There could be a lot of things connected to this. And if I know one thing about Q, it's that he'll continue, they will continue to drop clues until we get it, until the picture becomes clear, because the way it usually works is it's a little fuzzy and we get kind of a picture, but the picture's real fuzzy, and then a few more clues come and it gets a little bit clearer and a little bit clearer, and then finally the reality of it sets in and you go, oh my gosh. And I think that there's something else coming here with this, and that this is just the first fuzzy picture we've got of it. So I'm going to show you one more thing that I noticed today, and then we'll call it a night. Obama announces bid to become UN Secretary General. Barack Obama has announced plans to become Secretary General of the United Nations, allowing him to advance his globalist agenda on the world's stage. According to Al Jazeera, Obama has no intention to step away from the spotlight, much to the dismay of other world leaders such as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And I don't think it's necessary for me to read it. I just wanted you to know this. This is 3 days ago. This is the first that I'm hearing about it, probably because I've had my nose stuck in the books. But I don't know. I'm at a loss as to what to even say about it. I just hope it doesn't happen. That's all. But that's it for tonight. We're caught up with the Q posts unless he posts more tonight. I see up here that he has not posted anything yet tonight, so we are caught up. And I doubt I'll be posting another video tonight, but I may. So if not, I will see you guys tomorrow and talk to you later. Thank you for those of you that sent me coffee money yesterday. That was so kind, and I appreciated it. But and I enjoyed having a coffee today too. It was like a great big mug of coffee, and kept me wired all day. So anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Hope you have a wonderful evening, and hope you sleep well. Bye.